Hello and welcome to Treasury Talent's Ask a Treasury Recruiter. I am Joe Grabowski, joined as always by Scotty John. Scotty is on mute right now because he will be monitoring today's conversation for questions from the audience. This is an Ask Me Anything format. We do have a couple of questions that have been texted in over the course of the week. We will start off with those, but this is your open invite. These are two experienced recruiters who are donating their time to answer any questions that you have when it comes to careers, your job search, resumes, LinkedIn profiles, anything like that. If you want a recruiter's perspective or just our perspective, please feel free to drop comments in the conversation. We'll make sure that we get those answered for you. If we don't have any questions after this, we'll just end after we get through the two texted in questions. But as I mentioned, if you have them, this is your time to reach out. So please do so. Scotty is monitoring, and he'll be joining us here shortly. So, Scotty, how's it going today?
Oh, I can't complain, Joe. How about yourself?
About the same. Moving a little slowly after the Super Bowl yesterday, but I think that's just par for the course today, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people want our expert opinions on the Super Bowl. So, we'll get to that if we don't get inundated with questions about Treasury and recruiting this morning.
There we go. And then we are professional recruiters, not professional sports analysts. So please don't send us down that path. So, all right, I'm gonna start you off here. This is a text in question that came in over the course of the last week. How do I maintain a relationship with a recruiter, and how do I stay top of mind with a recruiter? It's almost two separate questions here, but I'll give you the first shot at it, and we'll chew on this for a little bit.
Yeah. So let me just start by being somewhat tongue in cheek, but at the same time, there's something to what I'm about to say, which is don't worry about recruiters. Focus on hiring managers, focus on networking within your space, on the practitioners, whatever that space is. Obviously, we're talking about Treasury here. And that being said, of course, we're biased, but there are some great third-party recruiters out there. So now that I've gotten the cheekiness out of the way, let me just say that, first and foremost, it's like anything, you'll want to start by really vetting your partners, regardless of who they are or what they do. So that'd be the first thing to say is you really don't want to be top of mind for every recruiter out there. You kind of want to vet who are the recruiters you want to work with. Once you've done that, you've determined, okay, here are the people that, the 5 recruiters I want to stay close to. It's similar to any other quote unquote networking. The key here is it's a two-way street, right? And so certainly it doesn't hurt to stay top of mind just by pinging someone, but I would start by asking them how they want to be communicated with, how often they're comfortable with you being proactive in your outreach, and, reaching out to a recruiter, constantly saying, what do you have for me? Quite frankly, as a recruiter, I can tell you that can get a little old. So that is the high level thoughts on that. Off the top, Joe, what would you add?
Yeah, it's an interesting relationship sitting in the recruitment seat because you're that bridge between hiring managers and job seekers, right? So with hiring managers, a lot of the conversations that I find myself having is people aren't widgets at the end of the day. We can't manufacture exactly what you're looking for. We can only provide you with options based on what's available and who's interested in the market, right? Same thing for job seekers. We can't manufacture jobs at the end of the day. So to your point, if you're just trying to maintain a relationship with a recruiter because it's all self-interested and you're not going to do anything to reciprocate, it's going to be a little bit tougher. And that is the type of stuff that we do notice. If it's just the constant, hey, what do you have for me? And if nothing, it's just a real short, simple transaction, you're almost better off not necessarily reaching out. You're almost better off just kind of just tempering that until that recruiter has something that you need. Just because if you're going to be transactional like that, you're better off saving yourself and that recruiter the time, because if the recruiter doesn't have something for you, our time is just as valuable as yours is at the end of the day. I'm not saying that to lecture. I'm not saying that to demean or anything like that. But obviously, it's a different conversation when we do have something for you of value. We're having that conversation with you. There's good recruiters know and have that in mind as they're going through their jobs. All right, who do I know? Do I know anyone who can do this job? And chances are you're going to be top of mind already if that's a good recruiter. Now, It all depends on which seat you're sitting in at the same time. Third-party recruiters, especially if you're working more with a generalist, and this goes to your point about choosing your partners carefully. Generalists may not necessarily build pipelines or do anything like that, and you may not even hear from them if you go to check in. Same thing with corporate recruiters. At the end of the day, they again can't manufacture opportunities, and if they're good, they have that folder in their ATS or on their desktop where, okay, I need a treasury analyst, let's say in Philadelphia. Here's who I know that I've already spoken with before. These are going to be my first calls even before I get the job posted. That's basically how smart recruiters work. We're under time constraints just like everyone else is, and we're also trying to serve two sides of the equation. You're trying to serve your clients, and it doesn't matter if you are internal or third party. You have clients, they're your hiring managers at the end of the day, but then your clients are also your job seekers that you're trying to maintain that relationship with as well, because you're trying to get a deal done. You're trying to help people in their careers. You're trying to fill a role for a client's need, and you have to keep both sides satisfied. That's why you'll see a lot of burnout in recruiting, honestly, is because it's a delicate balance, and it's, again, you're not selling a product that is, and I hate to call people products, but at the end of the day, you're not selling products that are stationary. People, they're emotional. Things are always constantly changing. That's why recruiting is, for as crazy as it is, it's also a lot of fun because you get to know a lot of people along the way. I just ranted. Was there anything there that you wanted to add off of what I just said?
Well, I think, first of all, I that's all pretty valuable, and I agree with everything you just said there. It's funny, we do tend to agree more than we find points of disagreement on these, but I guess that's a good thing. So the only other thing I would add is, again, treating this like any other relationship and that it's a two-way street. Well, what does that mean? So here's a couple of ideas or options. So one is, if you build a relationship with a handful of people, a handful of recruiters, third-party recruiters, and then some recruiter you do not know or didn't have a great interaction with calls you about a job at a particular company. I mean, this, I guess there's a little gray here, but I would say if you flip that over to me or Joe and say, hey, are you guys familiar with this? That is a huge value add to us. That's absolutely something we will remember and be grateful to you for. So again, it's, I'm only saying this if you've built a relationship, and if you don't have a great relationship with that other recruiter, because you don't want to backdoor another recruiter if you do have a good relationship with them. But again, that's a tremendous value to us in third party. On the flip side, on the corporate side of things, it's a little bit like Joe was mentioning, that job's a little more transactional just by its very nature. But if you have built a good relationship with a corporate recruiter, the best thing you can do is, who's in your network that might be good for a job that corporate recruiter has right this moment, right? Yeah. So if you can refer somebody who's a great fit for a job in FP&A or accounting or any other part of the business, you better believe they're going to have you top of mind when it comes to the next treasury role, because once again, you're treating them like a human. It's a relationship and it's two-way street. So those would be the only things I would add in terms of just some ideas for how to, reciprocate. Obviously for us as recruiters, the best thing we can do is help you find your next job, but there's other things we can do as well to add value. And I can speak for both you and I, Joe, I think confidently when I say we certainly try our best to do so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's it. That's all. The only other thing I had to add.
No, I think you're right on the money there, and that also brings up the other point that I was going to circle back around with, is being a little bit more solutions oriented. Like, if again, to your point, if you know someone in your network, you see that recruiter post a job, share it, or approach that person, approach the recruiter, say, look, I don't know if this person's interested. I know that they do this. Here's a lead for you. And if you have that relationship, make the introduction. Like, I think and this is on both sides of the equation, but I've seen it over the course of my career where you have internal recruiters who can be transactional, you have third party who can be transactional, and you have job seekers who can be transactional. And at the end of the day, recruiting and hiring is the start of a relationship, and recruiting is a relationship business. So if we start, and this is why we talk so much about networking and how to network and the value of networking and relationships and that type of stuff, because ultimately, if you're only networking and you're only tapping recruiters on the shoulder when you need something, you become a taker more than a giver. And that's just, it's a bad foundation for a relationship. I can tell you that. And again, I'm not preaching, I'm not trying to go off the hook with any of this, but the reality is people work with people who help them. That's why we talk about networking. Give more than you get, because if you're helping people, the natural psychology behind that is, oh yeah, well now I owe this person something, or I'm going to keep an eye out for them because they're keeping an eye out for me. That's just how this works. So it's interacting with their posts, it's sharing, it's and if you're trying to draw the company's attention, do the exact same thing like we've talked about previously. Share their posts with your thoughts. Even if it's something the company experienced some sort of success, that's a perfect time to drop in with the recruiter too. Say, hey, saw that your quarterly earnings were skyrocketing. That's fantastic news. Do you know, or does this impact anything that's coming along with my skill set? Or did just want to let you know that I'm still paying attention to your company. It goes way beyond just simply applying when there's something there for you. You do have to put in the effort when the outcome isn't always perfectly visible to you.
Yeah, that's great. I don't have anything to add.
All right, cool. All right, well, I'm going to throw you another one then. Oh, do we have anything from the audience?
Not yet. I'll just refresh here one more time, see if we have anybody that's popped in a question again. Oh, it looks like maybe we do. So give me just a split second here.
Sure.
All right, great. We do. We have a question. Do you find an uptick in Treasury recruitment in certain regions of the U.S.?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a monthly newsletter. I actually run the dashboard that has all of the data across the 50 different markets that we monitor. And in that monthly newsletter, we do talk very generally, but it does also come down to we'll list the 5 busiest markets too. And I can tell you how do I put this? The markets that are usually within the top 5 are going to be your Californias. Texas has really had a jump recently. New York and the tri-state area has had a little bit of a downtick, but still usually top 5. Chicago is another one. Georgia, the Atlanta area. North Carolina is usually within the top 10. And then you have Florida. So you certainly do have busier markets than others. I haven't seen the uptick in remote positions. It's still, just a handful compared to when you compare it to the total number of jobs out there. Remote is still not that, it's not predominant and hasn't taken hold as much as you'd think that it might have. But yeah, those are just a few of the busiest markets. Is there anything that I've missed there? Or what are your thoughts around it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, to your point, that's a deep dive into some data that Joe's tracking. So it's just a shameless plug here for the Treasury Talent newsletter, which it's free, and it's it should come to anybody who we've ever interacted with and have your email address. You should get that. So I think just if it's going to a spam or junk folder, make sure that you're pulling it into your main mailbox so that you're getting that. You can also find it on our website. So again, I'd say, great question. Probably a little bit more than, frankly, we would have had to prepare ahead of time. But the short answer is yes, there absolutely is an uptick. There's an uptick nationwide, but Joe, I think you did cover the regions that are kind of seeing the greatest part of that uptick.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point, I've been busy the last week finalizing just the January numbers, and we are above average for January, and we will have that newsletter out within the next couple of days. So keep an eye out for that. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to either one of us. We're happy to discuss it in greater depth. Again, with the caveat that we're not career coaches at the end of the day, right? Like we're not going to do the job search for you, but we're happy to give you some leads or some insight into what we see, and we're more than happy to be a resource for you there.
Indeed, and we're getting a couple of additional questions here, so I am going to pitch them over to you, Joe. So the first one: should you reapply to a job that you applied to previously that has been reposted?
Normally the applicant tracking system won't let you, because what happens is when you go to apply to the job, the profile is created, it's already attached to the job, and unless the recruiter on the back end or whoever's doing the hiring is has closed that other job out completely and is opened a new job or has opened a new job that accepts a new candidate pool, you usually won't have the opportunity to do that. At that point, if I'm in your seat and I do see that this job's been reposted a few times and you've already applied, try it with very low expectations. If you wind up running into the black hole scenario, or you just don't hear back, or you're not able to apply, that's where, again, we advise research the company, try to figure out who the hiring manager is, try to find who the recruiter may be, whatever it is, reach out to that person directly, express your interest. And if it is cold outreach, again, this kind of goes down a wormhole a little bit, but with that cold outreach, explain why you're interested in the job and why you believe you're qualified, because you never know who's reviewing that application on the other end. But in short, I would not, I don't think you'd be eligible to apply unless any of those circumstances I've laid out have come to fruition. But I'll pitch it over to you. What do you have, or do you have anything?
Yeah, no, I think just one point of clarification, just because I think for me, obviously listening to you talk about it, it's like, yeah, that all makes perfect sense. But just for our audience who may not be as familiar with how an applicant tracking system works,
Yeah.
what just to clarify what you mean when you say a new job. So basically, when you're a recruiter on a corporate team, you're going to create a job requisition in your applicant tracking system. You can then use that same evergreen job to repost to job boards. So sometimes when you see a job that's reposted, it's the same back end requisition, but it's a new posting. And that's when Joe's talking about the applicant tracking system will just immediately kick you out. That's typically why. To Joe's point, if the recruiter closes that requisition in the ATS on the back end and opens a new one, same job, just new requisition. And there's a number of reasons why you might do this, but that might actually allow you to apply again. The key here, just what I want to reiterate to anybody who's watching, and especially to the individual who asked the question, is you really want to, you've done the right thing. You've applied to the job. You've expressed interest. You've followed the proper channels, so to speak. So you're completely, frankly, it might annoy someone, but if it does, probably dodging a bullet. But you're completely within your right to just reach out to the recruiter, the hiring manager, and say, hey, I've already applied to the position. I want to respect the process. However, I haven't heard anything back. Just wanted to follow up on my application and reiterate your interest. And if you can, you get an opportunity to kind of express why you think you're a fit. We're fond of the Wayne Gretzky quote here: you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So that's kind of in keeping with that theme.
Yeah, and thanks for cleaning that up about the applicant tracking system. I realized that I probably went a little too high level with that. So thanks for clearing that up.
No worries. So we've got another great question here. And frankly, Joe, I got to be honest with you, man. I don't know the answer. I'm hoping you do.
Okay.
I suspect you will, but let me pitch it to you to see. Why do companies ask in an application, when was the last time you applied here?
Oh, quite frankly, I don't know why they would ask it, because if you are running off of an applicant tracking system, it should be part of what you can see in the person's profile once it's created is every job that they've applied to and when. There are timestamps around it. I don't know if maybe, I guess, trying to take just a shot in the dark behind the logic here. Maybe they're trying to see if you're one of those serial appliers who, it doesn't matter if it's the CFO role or the janitor role, you're throwing your hat in the ring, trying to figure that out. So maybe they're trying to see if there's any kind of, and this is reaching, trust me. Maybe they're trying to see, if you're even paying attention to what you're applying to. The other piece to that, kind of the hip shot reaction is it's lazy recruiting. If you have an applicant tracking system, you should know exactly who's applied and when and what to. But that's those are the two potential scenarios I can think of, but I mean, I don't think it's a standard practice, and if it is, I don't understand why.
Right. Yeah, to your point, and I have the benefit of listening to your thoughts and kind of formulating maybe some additional ideas here. Again, this is purely a guess, right? But I would say, first of all, I'd say it's probably a holdover practice from when we didn't have technology that could timestamp things. So I would be surprised if you see it often. But the reality is it's the same reason that applicant tracking systems have the functionality. If if somebody doesn't have that built into their internal system, they want to know when you applied last, and they want to go and get notes and feedback from the individuals that you may or may not have interviewed with in the past. That's my guess. Again, applicant tracking systems are pretty robust technology platforms, and they are going to have notes where a recruiter can go and kind of revisit. And if you were a total jerk the last time you went through the process, that's another data point for making a decision on whether or not to move forward in the process. Again, this is a guess. I think this is probably not a common practice anymore, given the use of technology. But that would be, just one more additional thought as to why it might happen. I'd be super curious if, in this particular case, if you do get in the door and build a relationship with the corporate recruiter, you should ask them why, hey, why do you have this? It'd be interesting to see what they say. I'd be curious to hear if they have the same reaction Joe and I have, because our combined, I'm not going to say how many years, but decades worth of experience here. And we're like, I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah. And I've personally never run across that in my career when I've gone to apply to jobs, or even just if I was debating on whether or not to apply to a job. So I don't have a point of reference, unfortunately. And to your point, we're both taking guesses at this and just trying to make sense from what we do know around why that may be.
Indeed. Awesome. Well, no more questions as of this moment. So we had one more text in, didn't we?
Yep. So I'm going to throw this one over to you. My career has primarily been focused in one industry within Treasury. First part, should I stay focused in that industry or consider opportunities in other industries within Treasury? And part two, if considering opportunities in other industries, how should I pursue them? So let's start off with the first one. Should you stay focused in that industry, or should you broaden your search to other industries that have Treasury?
Okay. So for anybody who's watching right now, who knows us and have watched some of the things we've put out in the past, you're likely going to already know the answer that I have to that question. And of course, this is based on conversations. This is not based on experience. I've not been a practitioner of Treasury, but I think what we often say here, and it's again based on conversations. So this is this is an informed opinion, but it's that Treasury is Treasury, and that industry shouldn't matter as much. My argument here is, even in the same industry, every company is different, right? So at the end of the day, there's going to be a learning curve regardless of the industry. And so the industry just shouldn't matter. Now, the caveat here is, does it matter to you, right? That's something that we also often talk about, is getting very clear on what's most important to you in the next job you take. So this particular scenario, if you've always been in financial services and you enjoy financial services, then of course you should focus on that industry. If you want to break into a new industry, or if you are more or less industry agnostic, or there are other factors that are more important to you, then don't worry about the industry. Now, that being said, we'll get to the second part of the question in just a minute here, and there's some things to think about there. But that's my response to the initial question. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, it aligns with yours, and there's not much more that I'd be able to add, because quite frankly, we're coming from the same place on this, right? Not trying to oversimplify the Treasury function, but to your point, Treasury is Treasury. There are nuances within industry, but I think, a lot of the coaching that we do with hiring managers too, is if you're only willing to consider people from within your own industry, number one, you're limiting your candidate pool, and number two, you're limiting diversity on your team. If everything is just, oh, these are industry best practices for our industry, then you might not have any innovation that's taking place in other industries. And it's going to limit the diversity of thought on your team, to be perfectly honest. So having said that, it does ultimately come down to your own personal preference. I've spoken with many people who say, look, my background is in, say, technology. I would love to get into fintech, or my background's in banking. I would love to get into corporate, anything like that. You're allowed, it's your career, it's your life. At the end of the day, your passions can change. And especially if you're not fulfilled in the industry that you're in, or you feel like you can do more, you owe it to yourself to start looking at other industries to become more well-developed and well-balanced treasury professional. So I'll close my thought out on that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. Otherwise, we can tackle the second part.
Well, no, there's not anything I want to add around that particular point that that isn't actually related to the second part of the question, which again, I think we've alluded to it a little bit already, but and to your point, we actively coach hiring managers who tell us that industry experience is important. There will be some challenges potentially because there's still seems to be there's a fair amount of people, I have no idea how many or what the percentage might be, who do care about industry experience or think that it's absolutely necessary. And Joe, you just outlined two phenomenal reasons why they shouldn't worry about that. And I think the most important is that diversity of thought piece. But the reality is that some people care and they really think that that's necessary. So, one, I think just having level set expectations is key, in knowing that there will be a potential challenge in making a move from one industry to another. But two, being prepared, it's an objection, right? That you want to be prepared to overcome. And I think the points that Joe's already outlined are really good ones for being able to overcome that. But, getting even through the kind of the gatekeeper, the process of your resume, going to a recruiter, or, just your application being reviewed, there's going to be some challenges potentially to even get into the conversation. Once you get in the conversation, that's where you can really drive the point home that, your experience in another industry is going to allow for you to bring different ideas and different approaches that you learned to this new company and this new team. So I don't necessarily have much more. I don't know if you have more to say about that, but that's kind of, I think the key here for anybody watching is just to level set your expectations on the front end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't have said it better myself. That includes, or that basically answers how to pursue it, right? You throw your hat in the ring. You do your best to try to sell and overcome any objections, because let's be honest, job seeking is a part of sales. We've talked about it before, right? Like, you have to convince the person on the other end that you are the perfect solution and solving for the problem that they have. That does become a little bit more difficult if you have someone on the other side who's just saying, yeah, I need someone, I'm in the tech sector, I need someone from tech, that's the only way this works. There's a good chance that you may not be able to overcome that objection, but what you can control is having clarity around your story, why you want to make that change and why you're looking to change those industries. Just being honest. Yeah, I have this background in financial services. However, I've been following the tech industry for X amount of years, and I'm really excited to get into Treasury with a tech company for XYZ. And here's how my experience that I'm bringing from financial services matches up directly with what you need. And just trying to bridge that gap that people perceive may exist as soon as you can, and give people reasons to want to speak with you and want to give you that shot, opposed to just saying, hey, I'm here, I'm interested. Let me know if you want to have a conversation. There is sales, and it is a little bit of an art. I'll be honest, so you do need to go into it with low expectations, because it can be tough and it can get frustrating, especially if you're looking for a job. And we've talked about it before. Searching for a job is a very emotional experience for job seekers, and that's what you and I try to be sensitive to.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. It's a good segue into another question we got from the audience, kind of a similar vein, and I think probably somewhat similar answers, but I'll pitch it to you, Joe, and get your thoughts. What about years of experience? This individual is essentially saying most postings are looking for X or Y number of years of experience, but as a young treasury professional, it's harder to meet that, without spending as much time in the space. So, what's your response to that?
Yeah, for me, I think we've talked about it before. I have an issue personally with the years of experience. I think typically when you look at the root of where that comes from, it's either going to be some sort of internal politics. To be, let's say, for example, to be director level, you have to have at least 10 years of experience within Treasury. I simply argue that it's the value of the experience over the years of experience. You can sit 10 years in a cash ops role. Doesn't necessarily qualify you with that 10 years of experience to go be a director that's overseeing capital markets and FX and everything else that comes along with it. So what I would do is I would still throw your hat in the ring. You have absolutely nothing to lose there. And I know I'm using throw your hat in the ring quite a bit today. It's just what's coming to me, but I would still express your interest in the job. And that's, again, going back to what we were just talking about with changing industries, there is going to be some sales that's going to be involved. You're going to have to do a lot of educating up front around how your experience is relevant to what they're looking for and how you're bridging that gap. And you're just trying to overcome objection, but you do need to kind of temper your expectations at the same time, because people can be very set in their ways. And when they do go to hire, it does tend to be, I need the checklist of this, X, Y, Z. And anyone who doesn't meet that checklist is going to not be considered. Now, the companies that don't have the challenges with hiring, they have flexibility on what's required. And the only way you're going to figure that out is by giving yourself that shot and putting yourself in the best possible position by educating them on your experience and how it's relevant to what they need. And I just ranted, so I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton to add. I guess, the one thing that we're all likely on the same page about, and I say we as in you and I and everybody watching, you can fit a lot of years, quote unquote, of experience into a shorter period of time. Anybody who went through, the GFC or is currently going through the liquidity crisis that was a result of COVID, has done a lot more than they would have otherwise in the year, the relatively calmer years between those crises, right? So that, to your point, Joe, just highlighting what you've done, and the whole point of a job, at least we would argue, is it exists to solve a business need. So essentially, there's a problem that needs to be solved. So if you can create essentially, and I'm going to borrow this from another LinkedIn individual. I'll just give him credit. His name's Austin Belsack, and he's coined the phrase value validation project. So if you can identify the problem and then propose a solution, it's a lot of work up front, but doing that and getting it in front of the hiring manager, and you can even go as far as to put together a slide deck. I would definitely recommend following Austin if you want details on this, but that's a way to potentially overcome the years of experience requirement, because a hiring manager may see your pitch to solving their problem and say, oh, I don't care what this person's background is. This is an amazing, problem or solution to the problem. And the risk there is that they steal your idea. But you know what? At the same time, again, if they do that, you just dodged a bullet. You don't want to work for that person anyway. So that's another potential idea. But I think, to Joe's point, making sure that you level set your expectations, and then again, I'm now going to use a phrase multiple times in this in this live, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take the shot.
Yeah, cool. We have anything else?
Let me just refresh one last time. I'm not seeing it as of this moment, but I'll just double. That's it. I think we're all set, Joe.
All right, cool. Looks like, we just cut out there for a minute, but we are back. So Treasury community, thanks as always for joining us. Thanks for your questions. We hope you got some value from this. Again, if you have questions throughout the week, feel free to reach out to me or Scotty. If you're not comfortable asking them in a public forum, text them, email them to us. We're happy to cover them. We won't put you on blast or anything like that. Otherwise, stay tuned for the rest of this week. We do have, as always on Wednesdays, our Treasury LinkedIn Live practitioner conversations, and then also Ask a Treasurer. Very similar format to this conversation, but on Fridays. So have a great week. Let us know if you need anything. And